Soldiers are always on guard during wartime, expecting the enemy to attack at any moment. This causes tensions to reach an explosive level. However, what occurs if the attack is not human-like? We'll be discussing 5 distinct cryptid monster encounters that soldiers had to deal with during wartime. The United States government initiated a defoliation program in Vietnam to aid in jungle warfare and remove plant life from regions devastated by conflict, as American GIs fought through the country's extensive jungles. While the long-term effects of Agent Orange, which include cancer-causing agents, brain damage, heart damage, and a variety of birth defects are still being discovered today, there seems to have been an unintended side effect of the chemical during the Vietnam War that American soldiers referred to as Rock Apes. Numerous platoons of enormous humanoid beings that were leaving Vietnam's dying forests reported on a regular basis that they had encountered American GIs using sticks and rocks during combat. In the Vietnam Mountains, while serving with the 101st Airborne, a veteran wrote the following report: "I saw them, the Rock Apes, on many occasions. They were typically found in small groups of 2 or 3 and were as massive as a giant man. They were smaller than Bigfoot, but larger than most men. They were also seen during the day and would occasionally set off our trip flares at night. This may be proof that a species resembling Bigfoot lives in the Vietnamese jungles and, when their natural habitat threatened to collapse, emerged from hiding to fight alongside soldiers to preserve their forests before moving to other jungles that aren't affected by Agent Orange defoliant." Some of the scariest dogfights in history occurred during World War II, where German fighter planes were pushing the limits of flight technology. Japanese pilots using desperate kamikaze attacks, British factories operating underground, pieced together cutting-edge fighter jets with limited resources for dramatic last stands, and U.S. Air Force pilots battling it out in some of the biggest aerial bombers ever built. All these technological breakthroughs paled in contrast, however, to the bizarre ones reported by American airmen who claimed to have had countless encounters with unexplained flying objects described as rocket-like, cigar-shaped vehicles. The 415th Night Fighter Squadron reported spotting many strange lights along the Rhine Valley crest north of the French-German border on a late November evening in 1944. A flaming orange glow was emitted by roughly 81 lights in a succession, according to the report. The lights dimmed and seemed to have vanished from the area completely as the Night Fighter Squadron turned to attack the ship. This was just one of many military reports describing similar-looking unexplained flying objects. Lieutenant Samuel A. Krasny's witness statement was among the oddest. While flying, Krasny reported he saw a gigantic, reddish-colored, cigar-shaped object without wings floating next to him a few yards off the plane's wingtip. It seemed to be tethered by an invisible cable that allowed it to keep its precise distance and speed. Krasny immediately began evasive maneuvers, rolling the plane while descending to escape the thing. To his amazement, the cigar-shaped object followed his every move, maintaining its position in relation to his aircraft with an exact cadence. Following a few more minutes of maneuvering, Krasny claimed that the object's color abruptly changed and that it blasted away from his craft at an amazing impulse speed before vanishing from view. The airmen who saw these lights later gave them the nickname Foo Fighters, a reference to the line from Smokey Stover's comics that read, "Where there's foo, there's fire," which was evocative of the weird craft's blazing color. The Rayu Jin, an enormous sea dragon that is portrayed in ancient Japanese mythology as having invaded Japan, is a recurrent character throughout several centuries worth of Japanese legends that cover the island nation's history. The historical scholars discounted the possibility that the Rayu Jin was a previously found monster because the sea dragon was portrayed in ancient Japanese folklore as a divine being associated with prosperity and good fortune. It's interesting to note that the Japanese antagonist, Kublai Khan, claims that Rayu Jin was the primary obstacle to his Mongolian flotilla, destroying his fleet before they could set foot on Japanese territory. This could indicate that Rayu Jin was a naturally occurring species of big sea snake that was unknown to foreign vessels but well known to native Japanese fishermen. The Dragon of Brasno. Around Brasno Lake in western Russia, close to the town of Andriopol, there appear to be various bizarre urban legends telling the story of a gigantic underwater dragon that has appeared multiple times over the course of history. Old Russian legend states that in the 13th century, as the Tatar-Mongol army advanced through the area around Brasno Lake on its route to Novgorod, it paused at the lake to establish a makeshift stronghold and rest area for the army, which would aid in future army deployments throughout the region. The soldiers described how, when the army's horses descended into the lake to drink, a huge howling beast emerged from the water, tearing apart troops like they were made of clay crockery and devouring the horses in a single bite. Stories of sand islands and mounds that formed in the lake over several centuries were persistent, and many people thought that the mounds were made by the dragon itself, presumably to lay eggs. Fishermen would try to reach this island, only to have their boats and water sucked into a huge mouth that would open beneath them, swallowing them whole. Other stories from the last century state that Russians believed the Nazi soldiers' testing of the waters and the awakening of the big beast prevented them from moving past the area around Brasno Lake. Some speculate that the Nazi soldiers may have been interested in trying to tame the beast, but they were in for a horrific shock when the beast started consuming soldiers who approached the lake too closely. Many disappearances in the modern era are linked to Brasno Lake, including those of gifted and experienced fishermen who vanish seemingly without a trace. Meetings with a U28 monster. A weird monster that would later be known as the U28 creature was sighted in the open seas during the early years of World War I. The creature's encounter is said to have happened on July 30th, 1915, and was reported in detail by Commander Fraser George G. von Forstner, a German U-boat commander, after his attack against the British steamer Iberian. He claimed that after the steamer sank, there appeared to be a large aquatic animal that was described as being about 80 feet in length and resembling a large crocodile. At that moment, I had 6 of my officers of the watch with me in the conning tower, including the chief engineer, the navigator, and the helmsman. The report is cited as saying, "We all called attention to this wonder of the oceans that was writhing and struggling among the wreckage at the same time. The creature was about 60 feet long, with 4 appendages that resembled big webbed feet, a long pointed tail, and a head that also tapered to a point. Although we were unable to identify it, we all agreed that it looked like an aquatic crocodile. Regretfully, the animal slid out of sight before we could get a picture. Cryptozoologists think that the stories of the U28 monster immediately correspond to the whale-eater cryptid of centuries-old encounters after 10 or 15 seconds. The whale-eater has been consistently sighted for the past 8 centuries all across the planet, with some major sightings occurring well into the present era. With an extended head, short neck, crocodile-like body, 4 flippers for movement, and a short tail, the creature is estimated to measure 43 feet long. Sailors have told amazing tales of enormous sea creatures that are rumored to chase and devour whales of various sizes since the 13th century. The whale-eater is thought to be a survivor of the Pliosaurus marine reptile species, which was thought to have become extinct approximately 65 million years ago, according to theories held by cryptozoologists. The whale-eater's crocodile-like look would fit the pliosaur description well and account for the numerous sightings reported throughout history. Furthermore, a 65-foot whale was discovered beached on St. Austin's sandy shore on August 13, 2012. The whale unexpectedly passed away before help could be given. When experts examined the whale, they discovered that its entire face was covered in deep gashes that resembled a single enormous bite mark. The teeth-like punctures on the whale's face also curved uniformly into a U shape. Based on the photographic evidence, a creature with huge, long, crocodile-shaped jaws lined with big, sharp teeth attacked the whale, one of the reports said.